Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited that you are here for our little release reading tonight. I will say, normally I'm able to give a very good mask and bring a very bubbly, warm energy into the space from the jump. But I'm going to be honest, I don't know how to entirely do that, given everything that is going on in the world. And as much as we're here to celebrate, I think we do have to take into account that all of the suffering, the violence, the multiple genocides that we are seeing happening right now. And I hope that I know that everyone in here tonight is doing what they can to be in solidarity, calling our useless reps, doing what we can, going out to rallies, finding the community in the best ways that we can. Please keep doing that. The beast of imperialism is throwing some hands right now, but we are definitely fucking throwing some hands right back. And we are going blow for blow. And we are definitely making some headway and making some really good moves. So please keep doing what you're doing. Please keep supporting the Palestinians. Keep educating yourself on what's happening in the Congo, Sudan, and everywhere. It's just, we need you right now. All right. We need everybody we can in this fight if we're going to get the liberation that we truly deserve for everyone. So I just want to say that. And we are here to celebrate, which seems a little odd. I think Zara themselves said it really, really eloquently today in their pub post, and I want to echo that. It doesn't seem to make sense why we're here to talk about books or poetry, but at the same time, it makes all the sense in the world because we are here to remind ourselves exactly what it is that we are fighting for, and it is to live our truths to the fullest. It is to be as free as we deserve to be, and to honor the people and the memories that need to be honored and upheld. And I can't think of any other collection that is more deserving of that right now, more deserving of the space and the celebration than Neither Created Nor Destroyed, which we are here for today. Today is release day. This beautiful book is out in the world. I think you're all here for that, right? I'm a words of affirmation kind of person, so if we could throw some love in the chat right now for this incredible collection that we're excited to hear from today. I'm sure the author would appreciate that, right? Right? Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Amazing. But yeah, that's why we're here. As Zara said, it is not frivolous. There is absolutely a purpose for us being here tonight and being in community together. And I am so honored and humble and just excited to have you all here. So with that, how are we going to do this tonight? How are we going to celebrate? Well, let me lay the land for you a little bit. We are going to have not one, but two incredible openers this evening. We're going to have Miles Collins-Sibley and Sarena Brown, which I could not be more happy to see these two wonderful people tonight and hear their work because it is incredible. They also blurred the book. It's pretty cool. And then after that, we're going to bring up our main event, Zara Jamshed themselves, to hear from this beautiful new collection that we have been oh so hungry for. And then after that, I'll bring my silly face back up with Zara. We'll have a little Q&A. We'll have a little conversation. I would like to get some questions from the audience. So if you get some things, if you're thinking up here while you're listening, please do put them in the chat because I will get to them if I can. But with all of that out of the way, are we ready for some poetry? Are we ready to hear some good words? Huh? What are we thinking, people? Yes, please? Okay. I think we can deliver. So with that, let me bring up our little duo here. I absolutely love that you're both together in this. I think this is fantastic. So first up for tonight, we have Miles A.M. Collins-Sibley. He, him, they, them is a Black, queer, trans, and sick. He writes poetry to talk to ghosts and to fall in love. You can find his weird queer poems in We Want It All, an anthology of trans radical poetics from Nightboat Books, Haunted from Porkbelly Press, Black Warrior Review, and Tinderbox Poetry Journal, among others. Their first chapbook, Dream About an Uncle, is forthcoming from Porkbelly Press. You can follow Miles on Twitter and Instagram at Miles_N_Miles. Please.
Thank you, MJ. And thank you, Zara, for inviting me and Sarena to be a part of your celebration. Zara has been a beloved of mine for a really long time. Awkward college baby poet days. And I'm so very proud of them and so excited that their words get to be where everybody can have them because they're great and too good to stay with awkward baby poetry friends. So I'm going to read some poems tonight that are kind of all loosely in a collection together about queerness and like ancestral queerness and loving your friends and figuring out yourself. What if a girl fell asleep and woke up a boy? What if a girl fell asleep and woke and dreamed her uncle? What if a girl fell asleep and woke up as her uncle? What if a girl died like her uncle died and she didn't know how her uncle died and she doesn't know how she died? What if a girl drove to the ocean and jumped in and became a boy? What if a girl's uncle didn't die and lives in a cottage by the ocean with his boyfriend, and their skin is so old they're both tissue paper? What if a girl is just tissue paper and she went and took a shower and washed her girlhood down the drain? What if a girl's uncle flies in his sleep and swoops into houses to tell girls they were never girls after all? What if a girl talks to ghosts in her sleep and they told her she was really a boy? What if a girl is possessed by a ghost and her head doesn't spin 160 degrees and actually she's okay to be partially ghost? What if a girl who is a boy is okay? What if a girl who finds out she is a boy is okay and everyone believed her? Contemplating masculinity in Walmart. Half an hour before closing, and I am the only living thing here. Just me and $5 plaid shirts piled up on a display table, piled up in my arms. I am a plaid shirt monster, patterned in mostly maroon and forest green. That's what scared the employees off, me. Shaved head tottering under flannel, disembodied shirts I've collected as facts. 1, they were $5. 2, they will button up on the right side of me. Or maybe it was the ghost following me, the one who looks like me in our eyes and in our noses and walks like I do, because I've been mimicking him and now he's mimicking me back. Daydream where my uncle is a magician. My uncle sits down at a cafe table by the window with a black laptop. He's surrounded by piles of strips of white paper and one spool of brass wire. Paper white calla lilies with brass tethers float in the windowsill. My uncle takes a hot drink and pours it over ice. He has headphones and places them in his ears. He picks up a strip of white paper and twirls it between fingers. My uncle is dark-skinned like his father and light-skinned like his sister. I am light-skinned like his sister. My uncle is a brass wire tether holding a strip of white paper. My uncle's hands are erratic. My uncle's hands are controlled. My uncle drops the strip of white paper to the ground and it rises back up. My uncle strokes away coffee grounds and crumbs. My uncle twirls and twists his hands until the strip of paper whispers, "It's ready." My uncle twists the strips of white paper into stems. My uncle dives his hand, thin and dark, thin and light, into his bag. My uncle pulls out more paper and cups it in his hands. Ovals fall out, and my uncle with gnarled knuckles kneads them into petals. My uncle pulls needle and thread from his right ear. The thread is calla lily white. My uncle strings kneaded petals into rings. My uncle floats rings over his bony wrists to his elbows, and they float back down. My uncle tightens rings into plumes. My uncle's bones shine through his skin like lightning bugs. My uncle takes the end of the brass wire. My hands are brass wires. A brass wire spools out from my belly button. My eyelashes are brass wires. The new hairs poking out from on and under my chin are brass wires. My uncle tugs sharply, and a brass wire boy sitting in my seat cries out. My uncle looks up to see. Wheezing and soft half light. I need a break. You too? Is that you whistling or me? Hold your breath if you can. I'll breathe for a moment. Now you breathe. It's you. Hold my breath to listen to yours. Listen to the frogs outside. Are those squeaks and chirps theirs or mine? I used to leave red marks on the white lips of my inhaler. I stopped wearing lipstick. Is yours red? Yeah, mine too. You carry my favorite cough drops in your pocket. You put one on the desk next to me. I've coughed so hard I've had to pull the car over. I've coughed so hard I've thrown up on my computer. I've thrown up in the shower. I've seen stars. I couldn't breathe with you. Naked and fumbling for an inhaler in a backpack pocket. Naked and deep, raspy breath in. You're okay. You won't die. I've never heard you make that sound before. It's scary. I know. Let's just lie down. We'll prop our chests up with pillows. We'll leave an inhaler on the bedside table. We'll leave one on the bookshelf. Doesn't matter if it's mine or yours. And then my last poem for today is thinking about the ways that you learn how to be a person through the people you love. Tall boy teaches small boy how to move his hips, for JP. Tall boy doesn't know this, but small boy's been watching him walk. Tall boy matches his stride to whomever he's walking with. Tall boy is extremely considerate, especially for a boy. Small boy learns consideration is possible for boys and is relieved. Tall boy gets a new pair of sneakers that are white and coral and teal. Small boy tells tall boy he likes his sneakers very much. Tall boy says, aha, and dances. Small boy watches tall boy dance because the sun is shining. Small boy watches tall boy dance at the edge of a crowded concert. Small boy watches tall boy dance while he cooks potatoes with duck fat. Small boy tastes and loves tall boy's potatoes with duck fat. Tall boy moves his hands when he talks at a podium. Small boy grips his hands firmly at the podium when he talks. Small boy worries he will fall over and no one will laugh at his jokes. Tall boy laughs at his own jokes, and small boy laughs at tall boy's jokes. Small boy asks tall boy to watch his cat, and tall boy is a very good babysitter. Tall boy and small boy hold hands under the table in class. Small boy listens to tall boy read poems at tall boy's dining room table. Tall boy makes popcorn with adobo and cayenne pepper, and too much cayenne pepper. Small boy and tall boy eat the popcorn anyways. Tall boy tells his friends he loves them. Tall boy tells small boy he loves him. Tall boy is not the only boy teaching small boy how to be a boy, but he is the tallest. Thank you.
Miles, Collins-Sibley, everybody, please give some love in the chat right now. That was so beautiful. Oh my God, I'm getting warmed up here. I'm getting warmed up. And so perfectly right next to Miles is our next opener, Sarena Brown. Sarena Brown, they, them, is a visual artist, poet, and Dream Yard fellow. They make art about the body through gender feelings, queer belonging, and disability. Their chapbook, I Am Thankful for Feeling and For the First Time on Earth, is out now with Big Lux. Sarena earned an MFA in poetry from UMass Amherst. You can see their work online at Typelessly Track 4, Night Coffee, and more. Find them on social media at Sarena Brownie. Please take it away.
Thank you for having me. And it is really special to be able to be here with Miles too, and to celebrate this really beautiful book. So I'm so happy to be here tonight, and I'll just jump into it. Big Dipper sadness after Mary Ruefle. Big Dipper sadness is the sadness of asking for the time. Seasonal allergies, campfire ash and anglerfish. It is big enough to knock the wind out of you, to lull you into Benadryl dreams, to give you bug bites on your ankles and knees. It's the sadness of canceled plans, of cattails waving by the river, of cherry dum-dum pops and celery stalks. Big Dipper sadness is made of dusty ceiling fans, daydreaming on the school bus, dial tones, the dentist, evanescence and chain emails. It is forever being the little spoon, forgetting a name, feeling small under stained glass sky, four-way stops and garden hoses with leaky faucets, gnomes, glitter, and glue. It's alive in half-dead houseplants, harmonicas and happy birthdays, irony and ice cubes. Big Dipper sadness lives inside Jolly Ranchers and Just Dance 2. It sulks in knickknacks collecting dust, kaleidoscopes and laundry day, loose lace shoes, lactate tablets and musk. It swells in Monopoly money, manic panic hair dye and natural deodorant, obnoxious boys, oboes, and ovals too. It lurks within power walkers, popcorn kernels and paper cuts. It thrives when you quit something you aren't immediately good at. It lives in radio static and roundabouts, in the sand crumbling between your toes, in sour gummy worms, slow blinks from the cat, stale potato chips and tickle attacks. Big Dipper sadness is sweet on toothaches, 2% milk, ulcers and unreliable narrators. It dwells in Venus flytraps, vague answers to specific questions, and Walmart parking lots. It wilts on winding mountain roads, under X-ray vests, inside Xboxes and yo-yos. Big Dipper sadness is Yahoo Answers getting shut down, Zippo lighters, zebra stripe gum, and lemon zest. This next one is called Obad. And those are like love poems written at dawn. Obad. In fog, I walk myself in quiet, freckled in first light. Snow crunches under the weight of my small body. Little clouds leave with each breath. My thoughts, still drifting, are not yet racing. I find something nameless, like a sibling of stillness in the wooded back streets of Northampton. Sometimes I might see a skunk slinking, or maybe a rabbit just doing rabbit things. In school a long time ago, I learned that the sun is a star, a big one. All the smaller stars sit overhead, some of them with big names and friends. In near dawn, they look behind themselves into what lives beyond what's here, and they make room in their sky for the sun. I still don't know what they do, the rabbits. I need to pay more attention to the rabbits from now on. I never noticed or can't remember. I'm a bad person and I'm selfish. I've either just cracked open or I'm cracking. I just need to have something bad happen. I need something bad to happen right now, but I'm too much of a coward to make a bad thing go. And I need this terrible thing to happen to me to explain why I can't find stillness or friends to keep, or to tell me why my mother doesn't like me. The stars, they make room, even though they can't see the sun. And the sun gets to be held by their same sky. And the stars, they are still there, but not always at the same time. Thank you. Very much a tone shift. I'm wearing this mesh shirt because I want to look gay. Sorry. I'm wearing this mesh shirt because I want to look gay. I want to look gay because 1, gay people are hot. And 2, they are utterly themselves. I'm not sure what it would feel like to be utterly anything, let alone myself, to be deeply embodied, to be grounded in the here and now. But I do know what's gay. And I don't mean cis white man gay. not toxic, butch femme gay. I mean multiplicity. I mean it's dirty. It's naive and restless and green. I mean lush. I mean mean. My gay is queer, is non-binary. Non-binary as in boyish femme, as in definitely not girl, although at one point I might have been one. My gay is goofy smiling at my phone, is in love with all of my friends, is emotionful all the time. My gay is chronically ill. My gay is mad. My gay is messy. Is that risky text, some sent away and some boiling in my notes app. My gay is biracial, is brown, is letting myself be a baby again, always a baby gay. My gay is crying all over Western Mass. My gay is crying at Stop and Shop, crying at the State Street fruit store, is sobbing among the chicken salad and the deli sandwiches. My gay is weeping at the blue glow of my Netflix queue. My gay is not finding enough gay shit, so I gotta do my own gay shit. My gay is watching The Fox and the Hound and sobbing at the opening credits. That fox had so many moms. So many moms. My gay is against bugs and dirt and tavas. My gay is not a nature gay. My gay is laughing during sex, is finding myself through my body. My gay is asking what's good and what's not. My gay is always asking, always asking, always, always asking, always asking, always, always, always. This next poem doesn't have a title. I'm waiting for it to come to me. We paint our friends in rainbows, some oil slicked and some sky bright. We want to be pretty. We pluck petals that don't serve us. We don't want to be beautiful. And others weave brush and leaves together to become something all their own. Pretty boy, we call ourselves whatever we want. And boy, do we want. And this very last poem, I think, is really special because it's also for my friend that Miles' last poem is for. It is inspired and for my friend Jay Pabaru. It's called I'm Thankful for Feeling for the First Time on Earth, and it's in my chapbook too. To get into all the time spent by the light of our teeth, we rose into slashing beauty, touching our whole bodies. I was checking to see the sturdiness of star-dark soil, my left shoe, my friends, my figure, divided with billowy tumors of steam, stood up. I could see in the mirror, among other things, my flesh chest fantasy. Hello. We can't only depend on mobility, careful to step with one foot, then the next. I broke. I softened. Every corner of the person I got to be was enough. That's all I got. Thank you, and I'm so excited to hear your work, Zara.
Yeah, thank you, Zara. Thank you, MJ. And game over.
Oh, what a blessing of an opening. Please give it up for Miles and Sarena. That was wonderful. That was just so wonderful. But I think it's time. I think it's time for the main event, folks. I don't know how everyone else is feeling, but let's get Zara up here right now. Oh, okay. Let's do it. Yes, the drum roll. Oh my God, I almost forgot. All right. Zara Jamshed, they, them, is a queer, trans, disabled Pakistani-American poet from New York City living in the East Bay area. They are the winner of the Penrose, let me repeat, winner of the Penrose Poetry Prize for LGBTQIA+ writers and have work published in The Arrow, Keppel Health Review, Kiwi Collective Magazine, and the Protest Through Poetry Anthology. Zara is a Paraplus Collective Fellow, was featured at Kearney Street Workshop's Literary Arts Showcase for Aperture and has had their work supported by Anaphor Arts, Open Mouth Literary, Queer Ancestors Project, Still Here SF, Sundress Academy for the Arts, They Friend, and Vona, just to name a few. Okay. Neither Created Nor Destroyed was a semi-finalist for the Pemmit River Prize and a finalist for the Stories Award for Poetry. Putting their engineering degree to use, Zara currently works to bring the economic and environmental benefits of solar energy to California's low-income renters. Please, everyone, all the love in the world to Zara right now.
I awoke with the ancestors in my sports bra. I feel them in the pull of elastic, the straps slicing at my shoulders, in the way my breasts are pulled towards the heart of me, a hug that just keeps going. All of their wild, all the flowing drapes of their lives now etched in the indentations along my ribcage, rustling restless under the t-shirt. I take off the shirt first, hold my womanhood like the good china, something inherited and passed down, but only held during special occasions. What is the opposite of support? When the polyester or cotton or whatever plastic made fabric lifts above the shoulder blades and up, I rise with the release. Know their love will keep me close until the quiet of my alone. Alone with all the genders and versions of myself I could have been. I can't believe this is actually happening. This is so exciting. Just like absolute like dream come true. Thank you so much, Miles and Sarena. You guys are incredible. This collection goes a lot of different places, but one of the main things it focuses on is like the relation between queerness, transness, and identifying as Muslim. And so this next poem is called Namaz, which is like the Arabic word for prayer. After the verbal sparring between the Islamic school teacher and my mother, the inclination to teach us to pray dwindled, faded like a sun-bleached rug. At holidays and funerals, my brother and I play cheap mimics, rising and falling a half beat out of step with a wave of other worshipers. Shoulder against her shoulder, from the corner of my eye, I watched my mother. Practiced the shape of each word with my smallest lips. Copied every gesture, every movement a surprise. When it is time to speak to God scriptless, I calculate the severity of my apology. I am used to doing and being good, and do not know how much of myself I owe. Prayer was a fickle seed, renouncing bloom, even after the Arabic studies in high school. It is hard to train a mouth out of unspeaking. The YouTube video plays on the dresser as I stand scarfless at the one rug I asked to bring to California. All recitation has a melody, and I learned the tune first, hum from the balls of my feet into the curl of surrender, my words edgeless in a wind full of knives. When it's finished, I sit on my knees, palms cupped open in offering, searching my own smallness for anything worth taking. I am left adrift, a fish looking for a net, a berry reaching for a mouth. This next work I actually started back in baby gay high school, not high school, college times, like the first kind of like coming into my own like non-binary identity. And I think for some people it's really exciting and affirming, and I think for me it was a little terrifying. And so this is one like analysis of that. It's called Portrait of Gender as Gentrification. It came as an invasion, not a riotous, gas-fired kind of avalanche. It started with a rumbling, the waking of something that maybe should have been left asleep. It came like a slow flood, viscous, molasses slow, creeped and crawled slowly down the slope and still took hold. Took what it wanted in the grip of adhesion. It came as an overpowering, the suspense of slow closing jaws, and I am the only thing keeping myself from being crushed into. Rebirth is like this. Something has to die first. It encroached like industrial porch lights, lavender lattes swallowing corner stores, a home I could no longer afford to live in, the price familial bankruptcy. I worried about bringing my people with me. If the calamity I swam in was legible to anyone I loved. I didn't get it right the first time. Found a white masculinity I didn't sanction at my doorstep, suddenly pleading asylum. Somebody profited from this. I wore it like the seams weren't splitting, like the squeeze fit, and that's just how I liked it. I couldn't breathe. The boundaries of a newfound freedom, instead an upcycled cage. It was the girls that pulled me back, covered my walls in color again. The glass windows shattered, house ablaze. My ambulance urgency quieted to a smoke alarm. In the ashes, I found a version of myself I recognized, like the warmth of a mug between palms, like the first bite of a donut, a version with roots built to stay. So the title is called Neither Created Nor Destroyed. There's a lot of references to like science, particularly physics, astrophysics, and the laws of thermodynamics. I'm a moon gay, what can I say? Both queer and Muslim, that's just how it goes. And sometimes temporary titles make their way into the book. So this one is called There's Gotta Be At Least One Moon Poem. There's a lot they don't tell you about transition, the ugliness of being made new over and over again. I am no stranger to being shaped by accidents of careening stellar bodies, and yet they think me all milk, mist, a soft, effeminate thing, timidly turning from the world in womanly cycles, as if I am not all stone, weathered bedrock, cracking open in craterous gorges, dust and mineral blowing out in anaerobic gusts. It's the blue light of your atmosphere that keeps me skipping stone smooth. Unlike the ocean, I at least have the decency to keep scars thrown by someone else's carelessness. An astronaut left not only his flag, but a camera on my surface. The thing about accidents is it doesn't matter if he dropped it or left it on purpose, the refuse remains. Hunk of plastic space junk not worth the jet fuel back. I considered tossing it into the sky and changed my mind. The gray will conquer anyway. We'll weather slowly or meet entropy's promise of collision in the void, regardless. If you picked up the husk of almost camera to point and shoot, you'd only capture a car window imitation to the real unsightly thing. They do not need to be beautiful to command an audience. The gravity of need is always felt. In every crashing wave, every rotational wobble, I am not lonely. My universe surrounds me, and in its black my wholeness, waxing, waning, sometimes unwatchable. I am not missing when the light comes in. I am always patient. This next poem, I'm gonna change because I want to do something different. The process or the closest thing that Muslims have to a baptism is something called an akika. And that's when it's like the ceremony that like welcomes a baby into the faith. And usually the big kind of like ceremonial thing is like the shaving of the head. Yeah, akika. Instead of baptism by water, a Muslim baby is welcomed into the world with a head shaved clean. I emerged from the womb with a head full of hair. In the joy of new parenthood, and the speed hair sprouted from my scalp, there's an entire photo gallery of my repeated blessings. My father grinning under bulbous glasses, me bald and wailing in one hand, buzzers in the other. Even before I was born, my mother prayed I'd have good hair. I kept it long and unbrushed, let the dark protein trail behind me like I was afraid of getting lost. In the scatter, I could thread an ocean, a rising of all the selves I leave behind. When the rumble of a new gender quaked, my auntie took me to the hairdresser. One loud snip and there was no more ocean, only rediscovery of scalp. At home, my father swallowed his disapproval, finding his trimmer at the back of my neck for the first time in 18 years. I have now let most of the length return, finding new ways to tend to and worship this wild water. I still keep an undercut along my right side, hold my duality and call it prophecy. With the clippers in my hand at the bathroom mirror, I build my own blessing over and over again. The undercut is gone, but the poem remains. Yes, a classic, one of the crowd favorites. Yeah, and next I want to share the title poem, Neither Created Nor Destroyed. My friend Marissa actually was the one who suggested the title, and I was like, yes, that's it. So this poem came after the title for the book had already been made. Neither created nor destroyed. The closer I move towards the me that is most free, the more ghosts flock back into my digital life, like tourists crowding the walkways. There's a curious unvanishing, an anti-ghosting, pixels of a past uncomfortable letting go. Cliches pour out in fake sincere DMs like, I knew you would always make it. Rooting for me requires the depth of reaching downwards into the cobwebbed basement. You haven't wandered my halls, not in years. Haven't held each crack in the tile with the weight of repair. Cut your skin on the sharpness of the edge, laid the plaster over the opening, and paved the brick yourself. Instead, you have stumbled onto the rug in the living room of my life, one hard yank away from ripping the floor out from under me. I needed you most when you are at your most fragile, so singularly focused on your own composition, so forgive me if I call this return a haunting. Forgive me that I didn't wait to be worthy. I was busy chasing the strongest isotope of myself. Everything that made me who I am was already laid in place. The energy transforming from potential to kinetic, ice to rain. I fall apart, and all the refuse rearranges its atomic formation, chemically reacts to something with a higher melting point. I am, therefore I am inevitable. Energy only changes form. Transformation is as natural as it is unreachable, and I am drawing the links in the fence, stitching a history, a memory, something, one ache at a time. Every joy a light year long, in an ancestry deep. A lot of this collection, this collection started coming together during 2020 COVID lockdown. And at the time, I'm based in California, in the Bay Area, and all of my family is East. Toronto, Boston, New York, very far away. And really miss my folks during that time. And so this next poem is called How Far Away from Home Are You? Like really far away, like the width of a continent, all 3,000 rugged miles, like a highway made of 42 hours, beginning and ending in ocean, like a border made of fences, or a country made of borders, like shifting time zones, my afternoon, your evening, like chasing the sun in reverse, like there is so much corn and soy between us, like only the company of mountains, uphill both ways, like two halves of a drawbridge pulled apart, like a kiss split open, like a satellite falling out of orbit, in the gravity of nothing, like a new car turned back into a lemon at midnight, like the last heartbeat, like two languages and at least one new alphabet, like trying to grow wings. One of the other things that like makes big appearances in the collection is the love for third culture children. These are folks who belong to two separate cultures, but seem to disappoint everyone. And I wanted to focus on the idea that maybe not only should third culture children not consistently apologize for their existence, but maybe there's something like special and unique that like third culture children have to offer the world. And so this is called The Beaches We Build. This is, yeah, my love letter to diasporic folks. We, children of the third culture, reach across continents, boil the lost river water into tea, purify in the steam of all that descends from ocean. We build siblings out of dances, hold the surety of the wolf pack in the pounding of our feet. The swings of our hips, hi Kala. That's my cat. We build siblings out of dances, hold the surety of the wolf pack in the pounding of our feet, the sways of our hips, the singing loud in the cathedrals of our rib cages. We photosynthesize in the high sun, our brown skin glistening from the water at our feet. Down at the shore, we take turns birthing ourselves. No one asks where we are really from. We are really from outer space, from the bluest void, from the smell of smoke when the fire is going out. We are your uncle's deepest shame. Your grandma turns in her grave knowing there wasn't space for us while she was here. We butcher the language like an animal, pray over the bones, tear through the heart of the lifeline. We pronounce our own names wrong, giggling during the prayer. We chew with our mouths open, carve protection spells into each other's spines. Our skirts are too short. We stay out too late. We make music out of all our alphabets, tongues sharp, know how to turn scraps into what feels like wholeness. If it storms, we are sheltered. We call each other home. I have 3 more poems left for you all. The last third of the collection traverses a pilgrimage that I made with my grandma, my mom, and my 2 aunties to Medina and Mecca in Saudi Arabia to make the pilgrimage Umrah. And so part of that ritual involves walking around the Holy Kaaba and saying a bunch of prayers. And we were told by our guide to talk to God like he was your friend. And so this next poem is called I Thanked Allah for Making Me Queer and Trans. I thanked Allah for making me queer and trans at Mecca's holy marble, bare feet tracing 7 winding circles. The Kaaba loomed, a gold-speckled worry stone, emitting a towering magnetic aliveness. Tears streamed into my mask as I was suddenly alone in a sea of 3 million people, prayers ringing out in every direction. I asked Allah if I was a mistake, and Allah said no. I cried and stood in the company of every queer Muslim who'd come before me, who stood where I stood, threadbare, seams bursting, questioning their own holiness. Hijab and abaya on, in the largest prayer room without gender, I know my transness stretched farther than the piazza, into every mountain, gravel heap, clock tower across this city made of stone and history. I remind myself that I belong to a history. When the tawaf is complete, I hold my mother's hand, lay the prayer rug on the cool white tile, and press my forehead into the earth, surrendering to every ounce of belief I hold. I sit on my knees, palms open, having never felt so small. Yeah, the pilgrimage we made was pretty wild. Saudi, completely different landscape than what I had experienced before in other Muslim countries like Pakistan. But one of the sites we got to travel to was called Jabal al-Nur, which stands for Mountain of Light. And so this is where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he had his first visitation from the angel Gabriel, who told him that he was God's prophet and that it was his duty to speak the word of Allah. And so this is about us arriving at that mountain. Jabal al-Nur. We didn't climb the mountain. 6 of us women waited after midnight on the tour bus seats for someone, anyone, to shepherd us up Jabal al-Nur. Earlier that day, we had parked at an unremarkable masjid in a sea overflowing with miracles. The mountain loomed, steep, gray against the sky's cloudless blue, pixelated through the zoom of the cracked cell phone screen. I tried to imagine the angel, the sky swallowing mass of him, blanketing the horizon after the prophet's first revelation, after delivering his soul-crushing embrace of literacy. But in the concrete lot, the empty sky is so benign, a baby blue so easy on the eyes. Am I unholy for feeling blithely underwhelmed? Would it have taken the ache of trudging up the stone myself, kneeling at the mouth of the cave to feel the shadow of divinity wash over me? Is witness alone ever enough? Disappointed, we step off the bus, restless, wander the haram instead. The early morning air billows warm through our abayas as we walk, teeming streets of pilgrims as agitated as our feet. I look up and see only hot white lights, stars bleached out of reach. And then suddenly I understand the prophet's fear of a sky that might swallow him whole. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. This is my last poem before we get into the discussion. It is called, What Kind of Ancestor Do You Want to Be? Will you flap your wings, huff in a bird's screech to stay remembered, to stay relevant? Will you hold your time like a litmus to all that was, all that will ever be? Will you sit at the water's edge with the uncles? Will you light the hookah at your knees? Remind the coal it is okay to burn. Pull the smoke between chipped teeth. Will the children name you after a climbing tree? Will you be branch enough to cocoon shelter? Will you wind chime whistle on your front porch? Will you come when the food is ready? Will you thread the needle, prick your finger in the tapestry of justice? Will you hold the earth like the seed is still becoming? Will you take the first watch, if called? Will you take the first strike, if called? Thank you.
Zara, everyone, come on, come on. Was that not an incredible reading or what? Like, yeah, bars, absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
This was just, thank you, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna have a little chat. I have some questions written up already, but if anyone out there in the audience has anything that they would like to ask the author, please do put that in the chat. I'd love to get those questions in there too, and not just hear, my silly little things. So please feel free. But I think I want to start off tonight talking a little bit about some of the ordering of the book. In particular, there are 3 arcs to this collection, right? So we have the conservation of energy, the entropy, and the approaching zero. And so I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about the ordering process for you and how you determine what parts of, the poetic equation here that the poems had to land in, right? So what was like your criteria for figuring that out?
Yeah. So originally it was going to be 2. Approaching Zero came later. Approaching Zero came when I was working with a mentor through the Paraplus Collective. Andrea is here. Hi. And Andrea was like, this book needs more. And I was like, it does. And they were like, you're going to go on this pilgrimage and that should be the last part of your book. And I was like, all right, sure, we'll see. But each section represents fundamental law of thermodynamics. For me, I became really obsessed with the idea of conservation of energy in college, especially as it translated to like emotional relationships. I couldn't understand why these relationships that I had that felt really intense kept fizzling out. And it was like, oh, you only get what you put in. That's just how the universe works. And so I wanted that to really frame like, this is where I come from. So there was a lot of like calling to ancestors, to immediate family, sort of like, how did any of this happen? Entropy, like, because this collection started in 2020, entropy felt like the only thing that was happening to any of us. Like, we had no idea what was going on. We didn't know how long it would last. It just sort of was spiraling indefinitely. And like, how do you make sense of any of that? Especially since my roommate and I were very, very cautious during lockdown. And then like approaching zero as a law itself is like pretty boring. Basically what it means is that like at the closer you get to absolute 0 degrees Kelvin, the amount of like chaos that you have becomes like a single constant. But the closer you get to absolute 0, like there's no life, there's nothing is vibrating, nothing's moving. The molecules normally have to like do stuff in order for us to exist. And so this was about kind of like agitating, like, okay, we're not just trying to control chaos. We sort of have to let chaos happen to us, or let the unexpected happen to us. And I had no expectations for the pilgrimage, and just sort of was like a vessel to receive what was happening.
Sure.
So that's kind of how that all came together.
I'm really fascinated that wasn't originally part of it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's incredible. I mean, speaking of like letting some chaos come in and having, a mentor be like, hey, I especially love Andrea in the chat right now. No, that's amazing. And so actually, I want to jump to a question here in particular, because in the third arc of this book, we get into the experience of the Umrah, and I thought it was fascinating because earlier when you start going into some of the scenes, you speak to this idea of portals and potential futures, this concept of pilgrimage. And I think in some ways, it's very reflective of like the motions of the is it the Tawaf, right? When you kind of and I thought that was just like so striking how that connects in the end, and thinking about that as like just this idea of allowing yourself to go through a portal, right? And so I'm curious if you wouldn't mind just speaking a little bit more about the experience connected to ancestry, and how tapping into that specific spiritual transcendence guided you to be more you, right? It didn't guide you backwards. It guided you to be truly more fully in your identity and your role as a curse breaker.
So I think one of the biggest things about the pilgrimage that I like really didn't expect was like how much history we learned. Like, Islamic history doesn't exist just like within like text. It's like stuff that actually happened 1400 years ago. And so we would visit different sites, like this is where the prophet was buried, this is where the prophet's like mosque was established, this is where he went when he was playing assassins, this is where he had the revelation. And so I really tried to like put myself like in the place of like, okay, if I was just an average worshiper witnessing all of this happen, like what would that experience be like? And I think when you're there with so many people that are chanting the same things that you are chanting, that are like making the same motions as you, you really feel like you belong to something. And even though I had like a pretty diasporic experience, like I was like traveling as a woman the entire time. And there were several things that were always like, oh, like the men can do this, and I wish I could do that. But I really felt connected to the idea that like I'm not the only person who's experienced this. And so being at this holy site, all I could think about was like all the queer Muslims that had come before me and like had these doubts, had these worries, and all the people also who are going to come after me, and sort of like, what is my responsibility as someone who's here now, to like admit like what my actual experience was, and not try to like have it like meet any sort of like preconceived narrative. And I feel really lucky that a lot of my relationship to Islam has come from being in queer Muslim spaces. And so like I was leading my aunties during prayer because I had taught myself how to pray. I had a very different relationship to prayer than like they did. I never pray with a hijab on anymore. That's just like not part of my practice. And that's like, okay. I think so many of us think of Islam as like a religion that's based on rules. And to me, I really think of it as a religion that's based off principles and like principles of justice, principles of acceptance. And if Allah, like every prayer is like, Allah is the most compassionate, the most merciful, the most forgiving. Like if I can forgive myself, Allah will forgive me so much more. Like we can't even comprehend how much Allah will forgive us more. And yeah, it felt like I was in a place where I could feel the presence of people who had come before me. And I was also sort of like teleporting to like, okay, this is where the folks that are going to come after me, what their experience is going to be like. And just to feel like you belong to something that massive, 1400 years old, 2 billion people deep, like that's just like really amazing, overwhelming. And like, I just cried a lot in front of the Kaaba.
Sure. Honestly, I just said when I was preparing some questions and just going through the book, I went on YouTube to watch some videos just so I could like make sure I was speaking to this correctly, and just see me just watching that, I was like, that's just such an I can't even imagine just the energy of that, and that's just that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, and being able to like do it with my grandma was like really one of the most like special things. And I made the ritual twice. The first time I made it on behalf of myself, and the second time I made it on behalf of my father's mother. So I like did it with one grandmother and then did it on behalf of the other. And so really felt like I was kind of like carrying the ancestors with me, like during the ritual for sure.
Of course. So speaking of ancestors, what I really loved about this collection in particular is the way you bring those voices in, and especially through the play formatting. I thought that was just so unique. I love when authors and writers are able, especially with poetry, to get into this more hybrid space. And so I'm wondering, you have several scenes throughout the book where you get into dialogue with them. And so I'm wondering, how did you determine that play formatting was the best body to hold their voices? And then a follow-up to that is, what were the plays and writers that were influencing you throughout the process of creating those pieces?
Well, in college, I got to be a lighting electrician and a lighting designer during my last 2 years, and hung out with a lot of cool theater nerds. At one point, while I was having a conversation with Andrea, they asked me like, how would you stage your like poetry collection? And I was like, interesting. And originally thought that I was like gonna make like a lighting map of like different instruments and like try to imagine like what colorings I would use and like what saturations and stuff like that. But also in college, I got to be a voice actor for a couple of readings by this playwright, Darcy Parker Bruce, who is a genius. And the reason they're a genius is because their like stage directions are basically poetry. They're just so evocative and tender and just and so I really wanted to like try that for myself. And once I kind of had the idea that like the ancestors are kind of like one mass, not necessarily all people directly related to me, because some of my ancestors, worked for the British Empire, and I'm not down with that. That they were sort of like they were a figure that like moved Zara through inaction in times of hesitation, in times of doubt. Like the ancestors were the ones being like, nope, just go. It wasn't necessarily kind, but it was, or it didn't necessarily come off as like nice, but all of those actions kind of like yeah, it needed to inspire action, prevent stagnance. And I really like the idea of them being a little mean, and but like with so much like love and intention in everything they did. So my favorite scene of the ancestors is, I think it's in Act 3, when Zara's at an airport and Zara's had her lotion confiscated by TSA and is bitter about it. And the ancestors like come and like return the lotion like back to Zara. That there's some sort of like, I'm looking out for you, even if it's like kind of in a small way. And then just having them like wait with Zara until like the plane leaves or they start boarding, was just like, this is fun and I want this to happen. I find it like poetically satisfying.
Oh, that's perfect. So there are obviously just so many intersections in this book, right? You know, we have Muslim and queer identity, we have, you know, the forms between the plays and the poetry, and obviously the sciences, right? So I'm not a big STEM person, and I'm always just like in wonder of people that can hold both, you know, so gracefully, right? And so I'm wondering, what do you find has been the most fascinating intersection that you've experienced between your engineering background and poetry, and how has learning the language and equations of the chemistry and the physics, etc., influenced your writing and identity as a poet?
I think the thing I was most obsessed with in this collection was the idea of phase change. So like, I think it still continues to boggle my mind that like, when something is solid, it like has these very like rigid molecular connections, and that those rigid molecular connections can be broken by heat, so that something loses its ability to have a steady volume and like needs a vessel in order to contain its volume. And then you go further and now your liquid when it evaporates like doesn't even hold volume anymore. It just is full of so much movement and agitation that it takes up so much space. And that just happens every day. Boil water for tea, and that just happens. Like all of these connections, these molecular connections are just like so weird and so fascinating. And so there's one poem in there that talks about like thermodynamic, I don't know, feature called the triple point. And this is the like stage at the right temperature and the right pressure, where element can hold or be in equilibrium at like all three forms, solid, liquid, and gas, which is also just like such a mind fuck to like wrap your head around. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, like conservation of energy just really feels like a philosophy that I like apply to my daily life. And how like within things that feel very like amorphous or intangible, these fundamental principles can still like be applied. And like that's also something that the Quran does. It like talks a lot about science and sort of these like, yeah, fundamental principles that like guide our universe. And I thought like, yeah, kind of having those two things, they like parallel off of each other very well.
They definitely do, and I think you showed that so well in this collection. And so thinking, wait, do we have a question from the chat? Oh, we do. I love it. Okay. So can you express, and this is from Musa, can you express why it is so important to you to interpret gender in Islam through scientific principles and language? Do you hope that people who are experts in one aspect of your intersection can learn and appreciate the other aspects through your work?
That's my brother, by the way. Hi, Musa.
Great question.
Great question, Musa. So I think that like scientific people can be really mean about religion. They can be like, we can't see this. You're like stupid for believing this. Just because of like things we can't see, but like we can't see molecules, we can't see gravity. There are so many things we can't see. We can model, we can understand, but like we can't actually see it. And I think particularly about Islam, like the way in which it's demonized is its backwardness, its supposed backwardsness, and how out of touch with science it supposedly is. And I think that we all like live on Earth, so we like understand how, you know, these fundamental things like gravity like work, and like have that lived experience of like existing within the kind of like parameters that define our hanging out on this planet. And trying to think of how to word this properly. I think that we deserve more than like these very like broad brush like paintings of like what Islam is. I think that metaphor is a vehicle that like leads to understanding. And I also want Muslim folks to understand that like there's nothing about queerness or transness that is incompatible with Islam. Earlier this year, there was this really fucked up letter that like a whole bunch of Islamic scholars signed that were basically, the TLDR was, in case it was unclear, Islam does not have room for queerness or gender variance. And like a whole bunch of Islamic scholars signed it, which first of all is like incredibly un-Islamic in itself. Like we're a religion that like thrives on the right to debate. And we like, there's just been no other sort of like unilateral declaration of like, here's the Muslim authority that has decided that like this thing is or isn't okay. Like there are no priests in Islam. Everyone is supposed to have their own direct relationship to Allah. No one is closer to God than anyone else. And so the thought that like a group of like self-determined experts could be like, queerness, there's no room for any of that. I think a lot of Muslims that like had fallen in bed with like right-wing conservatives are really like realizing how much they're fucked by like how like the Islamophobia regarding Palestine is starting to unfold. And so yeah, if something as like benign as science can like help explain to like the anti-Muslim people why like Islam isn't like weird and backwards, and explain to the Muslim people that like queerness isn't bad and weird, and like it actually makes our like our ummah, like our collective of worshipers, like stronger, then that seems like a decent like neutral vessel in order to like do that.
For sure, I would agree with that. And again, excellent question. Thank you. Shifting gears a little bit, can you bring up that beautiful book? Can you bring up that crown jewel? Can we see that cover really quick?
Y'all take a look.
Oh my God. All right, so I'm asking you to do this because I want to talk a little bit about the cover process for you. All right, this is a little bit of a collaboration. And if you could tell us a little bit more about the symbolism and the iconography that was used in the end, and how that relates to what goes on in the collection.
Yeah. So I was very eager, maybe overly eager, when I was first introduced to Dave. I gave him a sample of some of the poems and like some of the scenes. I gave him I looked at his portfolio and I was like, these are the works in your collection that like I really vibed with. And then I made a Pinterest board. And I really wanted there to be, this kind of like connection between like the cosmic and the religious. He was the one that put the minaret and the rocket next to each other, and I was like, you're a genius. I really wanted like the ancestors present, and so in the cover, there's little like shadowy figures in the distance, kind of like behind the central figure, and yeah, there's a lot of talk of like things, satellites and things falling out of orbit, and like the gravitational pull of things, the like gravitational pull of black holes. But also, yeah, like really strong like Islamic themes. And so he drew a moon at one point, and I was like, I think it should be a crescent moon, you know, because Islam. And like that felt like a really good decision. But I had no like initial vision myself of what I wanted the cover to look like. I just knew that I wanted something outer spacey, and something that, yeah, kind of like referenced the ancestors and Islam in some way. So I like gave Dave like a bunch of parameters, and he just like got to work. And then I just offered very small like notes afterwards, being like, oh, I think maybe I don't like that this is quite so pink. I'd like it a little bluer, or I'd like the figure to be a little darker skinned than it is, and like little things like that. But the like, yeah, composition of it and all of that was completely him.
It's just amazing. I mean, Dave is great. You did a great
Yeah.
job together, because like it just came out perfectly.
It
It's so
really
good.
did.
All right, so we got one more question in the chat here, and then I'll probably ask like another 2 questions of mine, and we'll wrap it up for today. But the Contranel family wants to ask, what drew you to writing poetry? What's your relationship to the writing process, and how do you know when a poem is done? That's the hardest question.
You know, just easy questions. So what drew me to writing poetry is I wanted to write novels, but for novels you need a beginning and a middle and an end. And I wanted to have too much control over my characters, and you can't really do that. But with poetry, you don't have to. You don't even need a beginning or a middle or an end. You need like a scene or a concept, or like just the amount of like literary freedom you have to like time travel around and like address something and then leave it completely unaddressed and then come back to it. That form was like really exciting. And I started playing around with poetry when I was in 6th grade, and just like kept it up. We had a like celebrity slam poet who had graduated from our high school. Sarah Kay went to my high school. And so that's when I was like, ooh, the writer is present. Like, you're telling the story with your body. How cool is that? So I did a bunch of spoken word in college, but I've found a lot of like comfort in the page more recently, especially in terms of playing with like formatting and stuff like that. My relationship to the writing process is chaotic. I'm either writing all the time or I'm writing very little. And I think that something I've gotten better at is writing when I don't have inspiration, and just sort of like letting a train of thought like take me somewhere. I do the like, you write a poem every day for the month of April for National Poetry Month. And that really gets you out of your head, because you're like, I just need to write anything and be able to like check this box off. But I'm really just like, I write when I like see amazing art or like have great conversations with my friends and things like that. And it is very hard to know when a poem is done. I took a really long time editing this collection, which I'm both happy with and will not do for the next book. I think that it requires a certain amount of like acceptance that the poem is never done. It's just like, this is where it is currently landed. And that like, that type of restraint is something that just like comes with practice, to be able to like not have such a tight grip on the work and like let it have a life of its own, even if like people don't interpret it exactly the way you want it or anything like that.
Okay, so just a couple more and we'll close out. We're having a great time here, but I also do want to acknowledge the fact that the critique is real. We've been doing this for a minute. So I don't want to keep everyone up too late. But with that, so there's a poem, Where Does the Future Live? And it ends on this line of freedom has a long finish, drink it in. And so I wanted to think about that a little more literally. And I was curious for you, if freedom could truly be in just a beverage, what would that be for you and why?
I have two answers. One is a mango smoothie. That feels really important. But also like a really solid cup of masala chai. Masala chai or Kashmiri chai. Something that's warm, spiced, social, and delicious.
I absolutely support that. I think that's a perfect answer. And then I would like to say, Myrna has a question. And have you started your next collection already?
I have
Is
not.
there?
Or no, yes, I have. I've started a new collection. I don't know how big it's going to be or if it'll meet the world. But I'm very interested, as someone who is very late into identifying as Indian. In all of my bios, I generally write that I'm Pakistani. But like every South Asian, like it all used to be one country. And it's all just who got shifted like around where and when. And so someone who's reluctantly identifying as an Indian Muslim, I'm very interested in the rise of Hindu nationalism in the country and sort of like what and how it's like bled into diaspora, and sort of what is your responsibility as someone who is like a Muslim Indian American, to like speak up on behalf of like against Hindu fascism. And I just want to learn more about it, like do a bunch of research and like see the history, because no one teaches South Asian history just, regularly. It's usually a special studies or something like that.
We are going to be waiting with bated breath because that sounds like an incredible collection. All right, so to close us out here tonight, I ask this question pretty much of all the authors because I'm always curious, because once your book is out in the world, it's going to do its thing. It's going to get into people's hands. People are going to start prescribing whatever meanings, they might have as they read it. And so I want to know from you, though, as the actual author, what do you hope readers specifically learn or experience from the book? If there is one core takeaway that you hope comes through clearly, what would that be?
I think I want to tell the truth in my work. That's the biggest thing. And so I never aim to represent anyone other than myself. Just because like I cannot speak on behalf of all of Islam or all of trans people or anything like that. But I hope that people have the ability to like understand their own potential for transformation, regardless of whether they identify as trans or not. Like some of us go through like, these like physical transitions. But there's so many kind of like, everyone is their own universe, and that there's space for that like in the world, and there's space for that in Islam, and that like that space can be made. You just have to like give yourself permission to let it happen.
I think that's a perfect note to end on. I love that. Well, everybody, thank you so much. That is our release reading for tonight. Thank you again to Miles and Sarena for being fantastic openers this evening. Thank you so much to our feature, Zara, for this incredible work. This beautiful book, Neither Created Nor Destroyed, is available now on gameoverbooks.com or in a bookstore near you. Tell your libraries. Bother everybody about it. Because it's an important collection and it's an honor and a privilege to support it. So just thank you, and thank you for everyone being a lovely audience. that's all we got. So have a beautiful rest of your night and be well.
Thank you.